When you walk into a house, a missing staircase or a frayed electrical wire immediately triggers alarm bells. You know to step back. But carbon monoxide doesn't give you that warning. It doesn't smell. It doesn't make a sound. It quietly starts filling the room, and you don't even realize you're in danger until you can barely breathe. Welcome to Gospel Walk. Today we're unpacking a powerful article from Christ Academy called Down from the Pedestal, and our focus is a spiritual threat that operates with the exact same silent lethality as carbon monoxide: pride. We rarely spot pride because it wears the masks of things we actually applaud. We see someone who refuses to ask for help, and we praise their independence. We admire the self-made mindset. We even mistake constant insecurity, that exhausting obsession with how others perceive us, for a lack of ego. But a wounded ego is still an ego. It still demands that you remain the main character of every interaction. Living under that mindset drains you. Every conversation becomes a performance you have to manage. Every bit of feedback feels like a personal attack you must deflect. You spend all your energy defending your territory and spinning your image, terrified someone might see a flaw. What we casually celebrate as drive or ambition often turns into a highly fragile pedestal. It elevates us, sure, but it completely cuts us off from genuine human connection and the grace we actually need to survive. This is a cyclical flowchart outlining a specific framework from Christ Academy. They map out the self-destruction of pride, not as a random moral failing, but as a predictable, mechanical sequence. And it always begins on that pedestal. Step 1 is elevation. You experience a little bit of success. You start believing your own hype. Over time, there's an internal shift where you look around and quietly decide you deserve more respect and recognition than you're currently getting. We're the smartest person in the room. You become allergic to friction. This leads to step 2, isolation. You start pushing away the truth tellers. You curate your circles so that you are only surrounded by people who offer shallow affirmation. By systematically removing all the mirrors from your life, you enter step 3, blindness. You completely lose the ability to accurately perceive your own weaknesses or read the reality of the situations around you. We see a literal version of this cycle in the book of Daniel. King Nebuchadnezzar stood on the roof of his palace, looking out at the immense wealth and scale of ancient Babylon. He looked at all of it and boasted that he had built this entire empire solely by his own mighty power, for his own glory. He had completely severed his connection to reality. By claiming absolute sovereignty and dethroning God in his own mind, his blindness became absolute. He descended into literal madness, driven away from his kingdom to live in the fields like a wild animal. The historical blueprint is clear. The higher the ego climbs to claim absolute self-sovereignty, the further it removes you from your true humanity. You can only outrun gravity for so long. Eventually, reality intrudes. That brings us to step 4, collapse. Because the prideful ego has stripped away any connection to truth, the illusion shatters.
Relationships fracture, businesses fail, or the pedestal simply crumbles beneath the weight. Proverbs 16:18 warns that pride goes before destruction. This is an ancient, universally acknowledged law of human behavior. The sequential collapse happens every time. When the collapse hits, you reach step 5, the crossroads. You have a choice. You can double down, blame everyone else, and sink into bitter despair. Or you can allow the collapse to break that false ego and embrace broken repentance. Think of the Apostle Peter. He boldly elevated himself above the other disciples, boasting that even if everyone else abandoned Jesus, he never would. When the pressure hit the courtyard, his self-reliance completely collapsed, and he denied Jesus 3 times. But Peter didn't choose despair. He wept, he repented, and out of that brokenness, he built a deeply humble foundation. The Apostle Paul offered a brilliant tool to bypass this destructive cycle entirely. He was writing to the church in Corinth, a city completely obsessed with status and spiritual one-upmanship. He asked them one razor-sharp question: what do you have that you did not receive? Every skill, every opportunity, the very oxygen in your lungs, it is all an unearned gift. Recognizing that single fact completely dismantles the dangerous illusion of the self-made person, which means we need to redefine what humility actually is. We culturally confuse it with self-loathing, as if being humble means constantly putting yourself down. But true humility is clear-sighted, fearless honesty. It is using your skills to their absolute maximum potential, while fully recognizing your reliance on God for all of it. This is a side-by-side comparison matrix, showing the contrast between the owner and the steward. The owner believes they earned everything, so they operate with closed fists. They fiercely defend their territory and demand a return on their investment. The steward knows everything is on loan. They manage God's gifts diligently, but they operate with open hands. You cultivate that open-handed freedom through deliberate daily practice. The first is daily gratitude. Bracket your day by actively thanking God for what you have. It starves the ego by reminding your brain that you are a recipient, not the creator. The second practice handles friction. The steward welcomes correction. If your identity requires you to be flawless, criticism feels like a threat to your existence. But if you already know you rely entirely on grace, someone pointing out a flaw isn't an attack. They're just helping you clean the windows. Then there is the third practice, serving completely anonymously. Do something kind, something helpful, and make sure you never get the credit for it. It intentionally deprives your pride of the intoxicating oxygen of human applause. C.S. Lewis called pride the essential vice, the utmost evil. When you see the isolation and destruction it causes, you understand why cultivating these opposing habits of grace is a daily necessity. The pedestal is an exhausting place to live. Stepping down from it is the only way you can drop that heavy armor of self-promotion. Because when you stop trying to carry the weight of the world, you finally find rest at the foot of the cross.